We're having a very good year for shoes, and today we're going to be trying out what I suspect to be another one to add to that long list. We're going to do a first impressions video of the Dynafish Xiaonian, which is a new super trainer on the market, with the headline feature being it weighs about 33 grams less than the Evo SL in my size, plus it only costs about 150 Australian dollars, which means that it's about $90 cheaper than an Evo SL and more than half the price of a Mega Blast and Super Blast. So get excited, we're going to chat through this one today, take it for an hour and a half, hour and 40, depending on how I feel, and just give a little bit of a first impressions rundown of this shoe. I'm very, very keen here. We've got 41mm of foam in the heel, 7mm drop. They're using a TPEE foam, very, very stripped down upper, so not a heap to it, but it is coming together in a package which I think could be very exciting. First time I came across Dynafish, which is a new Chinese brand on the market, was with their racing shoe, the Xiaonian, which I found to be quite nice as a tempo shoe, marathon, half marathon racing flat. I recently realized that the reason I couldn't push it into 5 and 10K was that the plate was sitting a little bit close to the foot in the forefoot. So every time I tried to push beyond that, I was getting that plate sensation under the ball of my foot, which was a bit uncomfortable. But as a first time racing shoe at 150 grams, again, much, much lighter than any other racing shoe on the market, I thought it was a pretty good start. A little bit narrow in the fit as well. I guess that's the other kind of caveat, but I was very excited by this one. This makes my top 10 racing shoes straight out of the gate. So to pair that with a super trainer, I'm very, very excited. So yeah, we're going to take it for a longer run today. And then when I get back, I would like to do a good 400, 500 meters of running on the street with the Evo SL, which I think is going to be one of the main comparison points to this shoe. And we'll give a bit of a kind of rundown alongside some impressions on the run as well. If you haven't been following my channel, I have been reviewing shoes here for less than a year, actually. It hasn't been a whole lot of time, but I've kind of knuckled down into a bit of a niche reviewing some Chinese racing shoes, which mainly stems from the fact that I'm a bit of a stinge and don't like to spend a heap of money if I can. I'll always buy second hand or, try find a way around with a discount code. So moving to AliExpress and now Taobao has been really, really fun, being able to pick up shoes for a lot less and kind of get similar technologies, if not better. I'm starting to see a lot of Chinese models creep into my kind of top 5 or 6 models for racing shoes and daily trainers and speed trainers. So it has been very, very exciting, and there does seem to be a bit of a market for it as well at the moment, considering how expensive a lot of super trainers are getting. Mega Blast has just released for $340 here in Australia. So to have some Chinese models coming through lighter with similar levels of stack for 150 bucks, it's a pretty exciting spot to be in. Chucking these on, these are definitely roomier than the Xiaonian, which is going to be good news if you had that shoe. They have the eyelet chain kind of spreading all the way down the shoe almost. A little bit like the Hoka Speed Goat 5, if people can remember that. It's got this kind of like neoprene style tongue, which is quite stretchy. And yeah, it does get down into the toe box. So you have the opportunity to expand it out a little bit more, which I appreciate. Heel counter, nice and soft, not overly stiff, so quite flexible. Does seem to lock down okay. Not getting any real heel slip there. Laces are a little bit long, and they are this kind of cheese wire variety, a little bit similar to what you get in the Adidas shoes. So a bit cautious of that, but I'm not going to complain too much. 150 bucks, as I said. Bit of context for this run for me is that this is my long run at the end of the week, but I have been off running for a little bit with an Achilles paratendinitis or tenosynovitis, whatever you want to call it. Pretty much the irritation of the kind of outer tissue of the tendon. Not really damage to it like a tendinitis, but more irritation, inflammation, which was caused by the heel counter of the Asics Sonic Blast. So we're kind of just coming back. We've been using some anti-inflammatories, resting up and doing some overnight wraps with the old Hydroid cream and diclofenac, which has been doing really well. So now we're kind of back to healthy. And yeah, these shoes have arrived at exactly the right time to go for a good run. In terms of sizing off the bat, I usually go for a size 10.5 over here with Western brands. So that's probably looking like EU 44.5. With all of my Chinese shoes, I've been going for an EU 44 exactly. I find that they have a little bit of extra room ahead of the toes 9 times out of 10. Here, no different. EU 44 has given me a good thumbnail of room with the extra bit of width now, which is a really nice compliment to that. So that'll be my kind of tip. Float between half sizes. Half size down is probably the way to go. If you've never floated between a size, true to size with your EU size should be a safe bet. We're going to try for an hour and a half, hour and 40 maybe. We're going to head over Hale Road to Herdsman Lake and Lake Munga. Just kind of see where we get to this afternoon. I'm going to take one gel with me. Big's new flavour of berry, 30 gram gel. I've been a pretty big fan so far. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Let's get for a run. Okay, 3K's in. I'm not going to muck you around. This is one of the best shoes that I've ever worn. It's so light, it's so smooth and protective. You just know straight away when a shoe is going to be good, and this has come across better than I was expecting. I was thinking I might find it a little bit soft, maybe a little bit too rocket, which was the sensation I had with the Evo SL, which made me prefer the Mega Blast for a bit more of a kind of punchy, structured ride. But it's just so light and easy to turn over. It kind of just dismisses all of that in favour of something which is just not even there. It's a sensation which I'm still trying to get used to. Like, I've worn light shoes before. I've worn 130 gram racing flats, and I've worn racing shoes before as well, obviously, but I haven't worn anything which has this level of cushion and feels so easygoing and feels this light. It's just not really clicking in my brain just yet. 3K's in. I'm pretty much sold that this is in my top 3 for mileage shoes this year. That's already sorted. This next, what are we going to call it, probably 18Ks, is probably going to be down to whether it gets into the top spot alongside Mega Blast, Mountain Coast H1, Evo SL. Is it going to sit in and around there? That's the question. This shoe is definitely quite quick in the kind of efficient feeling way. It's very light, very smooth. It's got that nice rolling sensation, but I think it is very distinct from the Super Blast and Mega Blast for me. Those shoes feel like a super shoe kind of pretending to be a daily trainer. They're still very stiff. They're still quite rocket. They've got that kind of deep punchy foam. And so when I'm running in those, the sensation isn't that far away from a super shoe. But this truly does feel like a daily trainer, but somehow it is still feeling quite easy to turn over because of the weight and that kind of more simple rebound. Weird sensation. Doesn't feel like the kind of conventional super trainer like a Skyward X or what else would there be? Neo Vista. Doesn't really feel like it's in that category. Different breed. Okay, most similar shoe on the market right now, I do think is probably still the Evo SL in terms of the kind of resilience of this TPE, the rock ring to it. That is still definitely very similar. It has the width underfoot though of something like a Mag Max, I think. Maybe a blend of those two, just cut an extra 60 grams off. This shoe's just going to ruin a lot of different daily trainers, really. It's just a bit of an embarrassment, honestly, to a lot of Western brands who savour every single little piece of technology they find. They come across a good bouncing midsole foam, put it in their race shoe for 2 years, then it comes down to their speed trainer, and then 10 years later, you might get a puck of foam in the daily trainer. Here, we've got a brand who's made their first 2 shoes, and they've gone straight for it and tried to make the best shoe possible, leaving no rock unturned. And I think it's come across really, really nicely. Like, brands try and pretend that they're putting the best of the best in their shoes, but they're always just hiding something, keeping something up their sleeve because they want to keep you guessing. They want you to come back. If you think that you've got the best shoe that, you know, can be designed for the next 2 years, why would you need 3-4 different shoes in a rotation? I love this kind of shoe. It proves all of that stuff wrong. And I think it kind of personifies what running shoe brands should be doing. trying to make the best experience for the customer straight away. Over 13 k's in now, legs are still feeling remarkably fresh, rolling along at like 420, 425 pace, which is much faster than my usual daily training pace. Certainly more than I'd expect now after a couple of poor weeks of training. I feel like a mid-marathon block. It's actually lovely. Okay, that's my long run ticked off. We got back in just over an hour and 32, pretty much an hour and 33. 4 minutes 31 per kilometre average pace. A fair bit of that was a bit quicker in the first half. Dropped off a fair bit in the final 4Ks, I would say, with a little bit of elevation gain coming back over Hale Road. I had a bit of a sensation of a quad cramp coming on, which is not something I've had for a while. I guess kind of speaks to the inconsistency of my training over the past couple of months, month or two. So we did fall apart a little bit there. But in the first half, we felt really, really good. We rolled a 4 minute kilometre halfway through and it felt very, very easy. Average heart rate, it says for the run, was 162. Not so certain on that. I do think it was a little bit lower. Maybe we kind of spiked it on the hills, but I did feel pretty comfortable the whole way, was breathing pretty easily and the legs were coming nicely. So I'm not too concerned about that, if I'm honest. In terms of the shoe, I think that it's pretty safe to say that this is easily one of the best daily trainers on the market right now, if not the best, and it's not really that close, honestly. This is the lightest, smoothest, most comfortable running shoe that I've worn in a while. It's got this kind of seamless transition onto the road, this lightweight, airy feel, a perfect geometry, which feels very, very easy to find. Like there's no kind of clunk or kind of disjointedness that you might feel with some other shoes. You can kind of land wherever you want, and the softness of the foam combined with that kind of rocker geometry really allows it to kind of absorb your force and transition that into a nice kind of forward propulsion. I really love the way that this shoe feels. It's extremely efficient, I would say, underfoot. Not kind of explosive and propulsive, but smooth, seamless. I'm going to keep on saying the word seamless, but it just feels like it transitions your energy through your stride perfectly without even having to put in a whole lot of thought to it. I really love the way that this shoe felt. The TPEE foam didn't bottom out or really change its properties a lot over the course of the run, which is something I was anticipating, because even shoes like the Evo SL, I do think break in a bit over the course of the run as they warm up, as they start to flex up a bit, which is often a good thing because the foam is a bit firmer at the start, softens up and then becomes quite smooth and a bit more comfortable. Here, I was worried that it was going to soften up to the point of being mushy, but it never happened. It just kept on coming back. Really reliable rebound. Was very, very pleased with that. The stability was also really good. I feel like there's a lot of surface area here underfoot, and there's no real cutouts or any real spots that are going to overcompress. Sure, it is still a little bit soft and it is reasonably high stack, so there's not going to be a kind of guarantee that it's going to work for everybody, but I do think it's probably going to be a better bet than the Evo SL with the midfoot cutout, which I think has not been a great success for some people. In terms of the upper comfort, I think they honestly nailed it. The heel counter was lovely and soft, which is exactly what I need for my Achilles right now. Breathability was fantastic. The tongue gusset and comfort of the tongue was awesome. I was skeptical of the laces, but they did actually hold the fit nicely. And I do really like this extended eyelet chain with the neoprene style material. I wish that they would introduce that onto the Danian. I think that would make an instant improvement to that shoe, give it a bit more of a kind of accommodating fit.
The outsole grip, CPU, was pretty good on the cleaner footpaths. I ran over a few sandy spots where it had absolutely no purchase at all, so that's probably my one warning, is that it doesn't have any real lug depth to it. So if you're going to take it off-road, it might not have a lot to give, but on smoother footpaths, the grip was good, and I'm pretty happy with how that's held so far. In terms of some comparisons, both in my overall experience, but also in a quick jog just then on the street, the Evo SL felt a fair bit firmer, a little bit more clunky through the heel. It's a little bit flatter, whereas the Xiaonian has this kind of heel bevel, which I think really smooths out the impact even when you do start to sit back. Especially going downhill, I think is where I notice it the most. You can kind of sit back on the heel, and this shoe kind of, again, absorbs your force really seamlessly, whereas the Evo SL can feel maybe a little bit clunky if you do hit the back with a bit more force. The midfoot cutout is definitely notable. As I said, I think that this felt a little bit more unstable. I think you can kind of feel how it wants to collapse in, but you can also feel the arch kind of digging into your foot a little bit more just due to how firm the foam is in comparison, whereas any kind of corners to the foam here are softened out by how compliant the midsole foam is, which I think is a pretty good feature. In terms of the Mega Blast, this was where I wasn't exactly sure how I would kind of respond. I have been a massive fan of how this shoe has felt in the past couple of weeks. Stepping into it, I noticed immediately how much better the upper is in the Xiaonian. The Mega Blast feels cheap and scratchy and narrow in comparison. It just feels like there's not enough padding in the tongue. The upper material is scratchy and plasticky. Heel counter is overly padded and overly stiff as well compared to the rest of the upper, and it just feels like it doesn't really know what it wants to do. In terms of the midsole, I do still obviously enjoy the aliphatic TPU. I like the wide base and that kind of punchy feeling up in the forefoot, but in this tired state, getting off the back of the long run, I will say that I did enjoy the softer, more compliant feel of the Xiaonian, again with that heel bevel through the back of the shoe, compared to the more abrupt geometry of the Mega Blast, which for me has felt fantastic when I'm getting up into the forefoot, but yeah, in that kind of last little stint on the street, landing a little bit further back, it didn't feel so flash. So that to me is not a conclusive decision. I do think that they are on a very, very similar playing field. Will I feel the same if I felt fresh and up and about and was attacking the forefoot? I'm not too sure, but I can say right now in a tired state, the Xiaonian is feeling a fair bit better in a couple of different places. I'm very keen to see how this comparison moves forward, because I do think right now the Mega Blast is one of the best examples of big brands overcharging for technologies which aren't that expensive to produce. Aliphatic TPU, a lot of information out there right now that this is on the scale of half the price of PIBA to produce. You can see that with the fact that the Velocity Nitro 4 has come out for $180, which has a full aliphatic TPU midsole. Would Puma be doing that if it was an expensive midsole technology? Not at all. It must be very, very cheap, and that has been confirmed in a couple of different spaces. So why is this coming out for $340? It's because ASICs know that people will still buy it. I've been sucked into it as well. I am very keen to see whether we can actually have a brand call the bluff and start to make shoes that are actually in the consumer's best interest, rather than just kind of pumping up the next new big thing. This is very, very good signs moving forward. I'm going to pencil this in as one of the best daily trainers that I've run in. Very excited. We'll get this up to 60, 70 Ks very, very quickly. And we'll also put together a kind of top list of all-rounder super trainers, daily trainers, which I think this will feature quite highly in. If you want to get your hands on this shoe, you can either find it on Taobao or AliExpress. If you can't find it by searching up Xiaonian and Dynafish, I'd encourage you to just screenshot this and use the search by image function. That is very reliable in my experience. You can pick it up for about 150 bucks on each site, which is interesting that they're both the same price, but yeah, very, very good price there if you just want to jump straight into it and get amongst it. Yeah, that kind of rounds out my thoughts for today. If you like this kind of first impressions video, we might try to do a few more of them in the future. Otherwise, check out my other reviews. Yeah, that's about it.